Uh, I thank Tax Sutra for giving me this opportunity to address all of you in the context of the recently concluded 43rd meeting of the GST Council. Going into this meeting, there were 3 or 4 overarching issues which were of some concern. And in the context of those, I'll just look at what the meeting has achieved. The first, obviously, was in relation to taxation under GST of the various COVID-related reliefs which were sought, or the COVID-related, whether it was on the importation side or on the GST side. And the committee sort of was set up, and that committee is given in its report. One would have thought that there would have been a certain sense of immediacy, and there would not have been a polarization of views in the context of the fact that the reliefs have to be given, because these are about the criticality of lives and saving of lives. The fact that it was referred, of course, arose from the fact that the fitment committee was of the view that exempting these will then create a certain disequilibrium in terms of the input tax credit, and as a result, the cost may actually go up. Most commentators had suggested that a very marginal rate of even 0.1% would secure a levy. And in that manner, the credit could also then be addressed either through a refund mechanism or, just by creating some sort of a special facility in terms of either a recredit or a refund. In any case, I think we will sort of see what the recommendations of the committee are. And this is the one aspect that I'm sure government and states will act quickly enough, to bring about whatever reliefs are required. Just as a collateral point, these issues of COVID-related tax reliefs did go to the Delhi High Court. Certain orders were passed, but just yesterday, we have a situation where Supreme Court has granted a stay on some of those Delhi High Court orders. So I think the ball now squarely is in the court of the GST Council and not the courts. The second issue, and that was an issue in terms of compensation for states in relation to revenue shortfalls, either on account of the COVID or otherwise. Last year, of course, this issue became extremely contentious, and very strong views were expressed that, the center is probably going back on the commitments that it made. The good development in this meeting, of course, has been that the formula, which last year became the sort of compromise formula, has been readopted. An amount has been identified as payable. And I think that's a significant and important step forwards. There is, of course, some debate as yet in terms of the computation of the amount. There has also been the lingering issue in terms of extension of the period for the cess. I believe in the current economic environment, there is justification for the cess mechanism to effectively be extended. And even in terms of, all the calculation issues, I think it's a quibble which will get resolved. But the in principle issue to compensate in the same manner as was the formula last year, I think that is an important enough development, to ensure that we will not have friction between the center and the states on those sets of issues. The last thing was, of course, the facilitation. And expectedly, that has come through. The relevant notifications have also come through. And, all around, whether it's CBDT, it's the courts, I mean, everybody is in the aftermath of the second wave of the pandemic, doing everything it can to facilitate compliance and, easing out the burden of compliance. And therefore, again, I think expectedly, these were good steps and they happened. The last thing that I'd just like to sort of leave on this particular podcast is the aspect of whether we are really now in a new phase of the sort of interactions which happen at the GST Council. The phase which was the first phase, which was marked in a way by the tenure of Mr. Jaitley, was a very happy GST council with lots of consensual decisions. Even debates were always sort of resolved to the satisfaction of participants. What we've sort of seen, however, over the last year or so, since the compensation crisis began, and I think even heading into this particular meeting, quite clearly, people were openly venting uh, in a manner either their concerns or their lack of sort of belief on the GST Council as a consensual forum. I mean, nothing in this meeting, causes us to say that it wasn't consensual. But I think the longer this thread runs, that from being a completely cooperative consensual forum, there are frictions which are sort of spilling out into the public. Uh, I would think that that is not a good sign, because the GST Council has really been an outstanding example of cooperative federalism. And I hope it maintains both that spirit, and that sort of culture, because the GST law, sadly, even, after 4 years, is still a law in a major phase of evolution. And I think the wisdom of the GST Council is critical to ensuring that the GST ultimately settles down in the way that all of us would like it to. Thank you for this opportunity to Tax Sutra, and thank you all for listening in.